which in itself is very San Antonio.
Packers.
And I'm driving on the Austin Highway, which is, it's just a road. And I see this little shack on the side of the road, and it's called Cascarones. And all they sell are cascarones. It's not even spring. Like for those at home, cascarones it's a tradition down here where they just empty out regular eggs and fill them with glitter and confetti and shit. And you crack them on people's head. It's great fun until you have to clean it up. In fact, I remember my grandfather banning cascarones at his house.
I think most people do after one episode with cascarones.
I mean, is it enough? Like, imagine going to your friends and family and saying, guys, I have a great business idea. I'm going to open a store and all we're going to sell is cascarones. I mean,
year round.
Year round. I mean, it's the middle of January and they had a table outside. I mean, it's 7:30 in the morning. They were ready for business. Jen, you miss San Antonio, don't you? You wish you were back.
What are you talking about? Austin and San Antonio are all bleeding together. I'm here, bro.
Man, don't try and loop us in with you assholes. This is
Austin would never have a year-round cascarones.
No, hell no. They wouldn't even think about it. And
San Antonio won't soon either. So,
I mean, we are on the I-35 corridor. Did you know that there's an I-69? And it's been under construction for 75 years. And one of the major holdups is that there's a bridge between Kentucky and whatever, Indiana or whatever, and neither state wants to pay for the bridge and the feds won't pay for it. So I-69 goes up and then you have to go around to see like 15 miles to go over some other bridge. And it's been like that for 50 years. And it's a standoff. Nobody's paying for the bridge. And I'm like, you can raise money, put up a cascarone stand or something. Anyway, our guests are already here. And so, Jen, I will let you introduce them. Rancho La Gloria.
This is Morgan with Kyla. So, but yeah,
big brand, done very well. All right, let's let them in. We have Morgan here.
Hey, Morgan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Awesome. We're doing well. Welcome to Beer Net Radio. Love that background.
Thank you. I thought I'd bring the spirit of Hood River on Friday.
We love that. Texas is very flat where we are. So you are adding value to our Friday morning. Absolutely.
Love our Mount Hood spring water. So nice. There we go.
Nice. Let me just go ahead and introduce you to our listening guests. We've got Morgan Robbat, president at Kyla Hard Kombucha. You guys are the top hard kombucha in the Pac Northwest, top 5 brand nationally, even though you're not distributed nationally. And the big news this week is that you guys just sold to Patco, the parent of Rancho La Gloria, the top wine RTD. So really like a microcosm of this Beyond Beer movement, right? Like a wine RTD buys a hard kombucha produced at a craft brewery,
That's as meta cool as you can get in this business. Man, you're at the nexus.
Questions there.
Yeah. So welcome. Let me just kick it off and, we just have casual conversations around here, Morgan. Yeah. Okay. So remembering a few years back, the whole evolution of the brand, the Kyla, the business, you guys started as a brand of Full Sail, if I remember correctly. And then eventually you kind of became your own entity. I believe maybe some of your own investors, but you're still brewed at or produced at Full Sail. And now this deal with Patco. So can you just explain the evolution, why it became its own brand?
Yeah, so Kyla launched in 2018 and which was around the same time that Full Sail started diversifying its business into co-packing. And so it was Full Sail's leadership that had the great idea, was recognizing what was going on in Better For You, saw the opportunity to really leverage the asset of Full Sail to create a new brand. The vision was always, as I understand it, for Kyla to be a separate brand from Full Sail, but it was really its sort of foyer into co-packing.
Got it.
And so it was a win-win in that regard.
Got it. And I mean, that's how you guys met Patco, is co-packing, right?
Exactly. Around the same time, Full Sail took on one of Patco's brands in terms of production. And that's how we met. And I started talking to Russell Stanley, who's the COO over there. And it was around the same time we were looking and thinking about additional investment and how we were going to grow the Kyla business. And we got to talking and just asked what they thought about hard kombucha and their interest in Better For You. And that sort of sparked the conversation around what we could do together as a strategic alliance to grow both of our businesses.
Got it. And, you guys didn't really disclaim or disclose the terms, but, what was your motivation to sell? I mean, I guess this isn't a complete, bye-bye. It's more like a partnership. What can you explain about that?
Yeah, so it became clear to me. So I joined in 2020, and my background is in, wines and spirits. And I had the great fortune of working at two companies that had, the power of a portfolio. And it was one thing I recognized and discussed with the board is, I think Kyla could really benefit from being a part of a portfolio and a platform, especially with everything that's gone on the last couple of years in supply chain. Certainly has created challenges for small brands in terms of rising costs and not really being able to benefit from the economies of scale of a portfolio, not only in supply chain, but also from a sales resource and overhead standpoint. So it was really about growing the brand was the motivation. The question was how we do that. Do we go out and we get additional capital, or do we go seek investment with a partner that has the overhead and the structure that will also benefit the growth strategy?
And so you will be staying on, correct?
Yeah, so Patco has hired me to come in and lead the integration into the portfolio, as well as continue to lead the brand. And, where it goes from there, we'll see.
Yeah. And one more thing that was interesting to me, I know everybody else is chomping at the bit to get to you, but speaking of integration, I know you guys have a lot of big wholesalers. You have some in common. Yeah, I think RNDC and Hayden, you guys are both in.
Exactly, with RNDC being the main connect.
Okay. But then you have some other big ones like Columbia where you guys don't overlap. And I think I may be leaving one out. Wine Warehouse right now.
Its own moment in the sun this week.
Right, exactly. So, it used to be that not aligning was looked at as a big dyssynergy, but we're seeing, some deals like Stone Sapporo where they say at least we're not going to align right away. So maybe can you walk us through the pluses and minuses of that?
Yeah, well, certainly when you're aligned, there's the benefit of being able to have one manager manage the whole business. But, you've got to find the right partner for the brand. And I think to your point, Jen, it's really weighing out the pros and cons. Yes, there is certainly efficiency of having the brand in one house. What's the overall benefit of being with the right partner? And Kyla's really happy with its partnership with Wine Warehouse and Columbia, which today are two of our largest regions. And so when Russell and I started talking about, what would the game plan be around integration, we looked at both and ultimately decided that sort of staying where we were was the best thing for the Kyla brand. How we would manage that, as I mentioned to you, Jen, is more, leveraging that I'm joining the team. Patco also hired two of our sales managers based in California. So there are additional resources available to manage the wholesalers and partner with the wholesalers that aren't 100% aligned with Patco.
And so is this a precursor to you expanding to markets where you're not currently in, or is it more of a retrenching with where you're at?
The primary growth driver that we see joining the Patco team is really with leaning into their incredible relationships with chains and their expertise in driving chain business. I mentioned to Jen, Kyla and the category was really built in the natural grocery channel with the likes of Sprouts and Whole Foods and natural grocers. But the big growth that we've seen and we anticipate over the next couple of years is really with the tipping point of the category into conventional channels. And so with that being a strength of Patco, there's a huge opportunity for us to grow where we already are by expanding our footprint into these conventional chains.
And is it, and I'm sorry for being ignorant, but is it shelf
No.
stable or is it through the cold chain?
Kyla
Or
is shelf stable. It was actually one of the first brands to pioneer a production process that allowed it to be shelf stable.
okay,
So
so
we
that
still
does.
we adhere to a freshness date, but you can put Kyla on the floor, you can put Kyla on the warm shelf in addition to the cold box.
Okay, so that's going to lend itself, like you said, to getting into Rouse and Walmart or whoever chains that are out west and getting displayed next to, I guess Rancho. I mean, no, maybe not next to, but being part of the portfolio, going to the chain, say, hey, we also have this to fill your gaps, because hard kombucha is just such a different product. And do you anticipate there being like any training issues or cultural issues with having a kind of a new sales force selling this alongside what they have?
Education is always important for Kyla and the category, since, as you said, it is quite different. But the team at Patco is really hungry and really eager to learn. And so right out of the gates, we've seen great questions, great pickup in terms of excitement to pitch and understanding, and really in a good way, challenging us to sort of refine our elevator pitch, if you will, and simplify how we talk about Kyla and the category.
Right.
So I don't see it as a challenge. No, we see it as an opportunity to really expand our team and take that message out to more people through greater presence in the market.
Right.
And tasting is believing in Kyla. So the first thing I always like to do is send a sample. You got to try it. You got to taste it. Take it out from this conceptual place that can sit in people's minds if they don't know kombucha or they've tried kombucha and they're not a fan. And really getting that it is a different product. It's light, it's refreshing, it's effervescent, much more sessionable than a non-alcoholic kombucha. And we just find tasting Kyla in particular is the quickest way to create fans.
Right.
I wanted to follow up a little more on expansion. Expanding into the chains and the markets you're already in makes complete sense. When you think about new markets, I mean, this is still a very new segment, and likely probably brand new for a lot of states.
Yep.
So how do you think about what to hit next? Are you looking at regular kombucha trends or something else? How do you determine what makes sense?
There is some great data out there on category development by market, and it is interesting to overlay that with where and how non-alcoholic kombucha developed over the US as sort of a forward into what we can potentially see in hard kombucha. But you can see in the data really which markets are over indexing in hard kombucha overall and which are showing growth in terms of dollar sales. A lot of it starts with getting a key account on board to really champion and bring availability to the marketplace. So let's take Florida, for example. Getting Publix on board behind the category really lights a fire and gets the whole market more interested in paying more attention. So
go ahead.
So what we look for when we're looking at new markets is what's the market readiness to embrace hard kombucha? What are the pockets where our target consumer lives? Is there enough there for us to launch the market? But also, are there key partners that want to get behind the brand and the category? Because that's really critical. We see independence and on-premise growing in more developed markets like California, but so far it's really been driven in emerging markets by those key chains getting behind it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't go to Utah. Maybe Utah seems like it'd probably be a good. Yeah, it'd probably be a good market. I'm just talking
Not far
about
from
the
you,
laws seem weird. It seems like a hang up, but
so you have to be under 5% for sure.
Yeah, or Iowa. But on the other hand, being a first mover, when kombucha does hit, because these trends tend to come in from the coast, maybe there is something there for that, but I get what you're saying. Having to teach awareness first of what it is and then doing the brand, like I said, I think on the last podcast,
Yeah.
two-part marketing never works. It has to be one part, and
Especially when you're a small team, yeah, that's a big lift. But
yeah.
the other, opportunity for evaluation in terms of new markets now with this Patco partnership is where is Patco strong and where do they have their team based? Because Kyla and Hard Kombucha still requires a lot of hand selling. And so we have found that having feet in the street, so to speak, is a huge advantage when you're looking to grow Kyla in a new market. So that's certainly something that we're evaluating, and why I mentioned to Jen that Texas really struck us as the first big opportunity for expansion as a part of the acquisition.
Which you guys are doing this spring, right? You're entering Texas this spring.
Exactly. And we were able to, be able to look at our current partners like Sprouts and Whole Foods to help sort of soft launch and build that base. But now with the Patco team, we're looking at other key accounts in the region that we think are great targets, and which geographies, like Austin, for example, do we think could be really influential in supporting the brand and building that buzz and awareness.
Right. And you talked about, chain being so important, key retailers being so important to helping build the brand. When you and I had talked about, I don't think we've covered it yet, you guys have the fastest selling 16 ounce, right?
Right. Lavender lemonade.
Yes. And so you would think that would be a slam dunk for a C-store, but again, Hard Kombucha is kind of a different animal. So how are you guys thinking about C-store?
Yeah. So first, let me just share a little bit more about the 16 ounce business, because you'd be surprised. 16 ounce today in Hard Kombucha is about a quarter of the share. And that's without a lot of distribution in C-store. So a lot of it was driven by Natural Grocery that has a great sort of grab and go full box offering in both non-alc and alc. But now you're seeing it in grocery too. If you have a chain that's interested in the category but isn't quite sure that it wants to put a 6-pack on the shelf, it's a great trial size. So for example, in Portland area, we have a placement with Safeway Albertsons on our 16 ounce because they are interested in growing the business and interested in Kyla, but still think that the consumer's at that trial point in the maturity. And so for them, the 16 ounce works really well as a trial size, as a grab and go. And it's a great way to test the brand and the category in a new marketplace. Is, hey, if you're not quite sure, take a 16 ounce, try it. It doesn't take up that much space. And then if the 16 ounce proves that there's a consumer in your store that's interested, then you can look at expanding into 6-packs and variety packs.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you guys want to drive the single serve more in grocery than C-stores. Maybe C-stores will come a bit later, or...
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is you'd be surprised how the opportunity for 16 ounces is larger than you'd think. And even my last chat with Target, I was asking them if they were looking at single serve and grab and go. And they said they are rolling out a planogram that's going to test single serve. So single serve has phenomenal margins through the line.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The history. So if you look back like at 2010, when craft brewers were coming on, the way to get into chains was with the single serve, big bomber bottles back, glass. So 2010, how stupid were we? But I mean, that was a big market in grocery stores. And then you saw that kind of contract, and then cans came out, and then now the 16 ounce and the 22, the 19.2 and 20. Yeah. These are the new bombers, and I've noticed that grocery stores are expanding back into single serve because they're losing their hide to C stores with mainly with Juice Force and these other craft offerings that are high ABV, and so they're trying to get back that shopper. And so it is interesting to see single serve come back into play, and it's a great proving ground. I'm glad to see it because it is a great proving ground because there's too many 6-packs and 4-packs out there right now. There's going to be a culling. So it's also a good defensive.
Yeah, it's a great way to try new flavors and new brands. And, there is a grab and go shopper that's out there and different occasions. We have 16-ounce and 6-packs in certain stores. And we always get asked, are you worried that's going to cannibalize? And what we see is that it's a different consumer, different occasion for each size. So to answer your question, Jen, we are excited about the potential around convenience, but there is a market for singles beyond convenience that we're also excited about.
Yeah. It's just beer. I've come to the conclusion that everything is beer.
So let me ask, has everyone on this podcast had a hard kombucha, or has anyone tried Kyla? Okay,
yes.
I tried Kyla.
Right. Yeah, me neither. But I have had hard kombucha.
Yes.
And
we'll have to get everyone some Kyla so you can enjoy.
Yes. And, I've had even some that I haven't spit back into the can. So
there is a big variation, something we hear from buyers as well is there's a huge variation in taste profile in the category.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that trial is so important. We believe, humbly, we're the best tasting. And a lot of it is, the brewing team at Full Sail did an incredible job developing Kyla. And, this beautiful mountain that we see in the background, we have beautiful, pure, pristine water.
Yeah.
It does not require any filtration. And that makes a huge difference in taste. What's also fun, if you talk about the original brewing team for Kyla, is they weren't happy with any of the off-the-shelf SCOBY options at that time. And so they went out and developed their own SCOBY. So Kyla has its own bespoke SCOBY that we cultivate and take care of at the brewery that was really curated for a specific taste profile.
Interesting.
So there are a lot of choices that go into the craft production of hard kombucha, and our team does an amazing job in terms of sourcing locally and globally for finding the right taste profile. So our lavender lemonade, for example, we sourced lavender from France because the team thought it was the best tasting for the formula they were going for. But we also use, local juices, turmeric from India. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of interesting natural ingredients that go into hard kombucha that does separate it from beer. And I think gives it that 1 foot in non-alc, 1 foot in alc that makes it a really interesting proposition.
I'm not a brewer, but it seems really hard to make. I mean, it's hard to make beer. And then you add the kombucha part where it's fermenting and I remember early on, they were all exploding in the stores and, because the gas is built. So, I know it's an incredible feat and you've done very well. Is there still an awareness issue with hard kombucha? I mean, I know it seems like it's pretty ubiquitous now, but maybe there is still learnings out there.
There's definitely still learning. Every month, I think new people are adopting the category, which is great. I mean, just even my own personal network, I hear all the time, have you tried hard kombucha? Or I'm switching my wine or my beer for hard kombucha. So it's definitely gaining steam, but there is still a huge opportunity in terms of awareness and household penetration. I think one of the most staggering data points I saw when I joined was the household penetration on hard kombucha is only 0.4, where if you look at hard seltzer, it's 15%. If you look at non-alc kombucha, it's 10%. So huge upside potential in terms of where it is today and where it can go.
Do you think it will ever be national? Because I think a lot of people thought that the hard kombucha category would be a little bit easier to build than it has been for all of the challenges we just mentioned, right?
I think it certainly has national potential. I just think it's going to be built, like we said, through love and labor of love in each of these markets with key accounts getting behind it. And yes, it will certainly get there. I mean, kombucha has.
Looking way down the road, and I know this question's a little out there, but I only bring it up because I know Patco has ties to private label production. So I'm just wondering, do you see a want from retailers or foresee a want on private label hard kombucha? If so, is that something that y'all would ever want to take on?
I think to your point, I mean, Patco is very strong in their ability to develop new flavors, new products that cater to chains. And it's a thriving part of their business even today. One of the things I love about the Patco office, which you're all invited to, is they have a lab in the office with 2 senior lab managers. And so in real time, if the team has an idea, you can, instantly sort of make it happen, see it happen. So they're really set up for success in terms of developing new products and moving very quickly in-house. And so I think to your question, Jordan, yes. I mean, if there was a retailer that was interested in private label and it made sense, then I think we could go all in there.
Yeah,
But
Interesting.
it's not in the phase 1 plan, so to speak. I mean, the focus right now is really making sure that we develop Kyla and maximize the success of the Sunbreak series that we're seeing in the market, which is just ripe to scale. I mean, Lavender Lemonade is outselling not only the competitors in the category, but that single serve is beating RTD, hard seltzer, craft beer. And so there's a huge opportunity to scale with that selling story.
Because
it's interesting to see. Oh, sorry.
You're good. It's just because just talking about where it sources drinkers from, it probably sources drinkers from all over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We see a lot of interaction with beer and seltzer, but we also see it with wine as well. And I think the interaction with wine is around the ABV. A lot of people say, I just feel better if I switch my glass of red, to a hard kombucha. We have a saying on the team that's hang without the over. And,
That's
a
great.
lot of people, you hear that subjectively, that they just feel better the next day if they're switching that, big glass of red to a light, refreshing hard kombucha or Kyla.
I just read an article about, and I'm gonna just totally brick this, but about a woman who drank red wine, but it made her feel terrible. But I could see how it. So she switched to tequila. That was the story. She started to just drinking straight white tequila, Blanca, and which I thought was funny, but it made her feel better. And I could see how red wine has this perception of health and wellness and good for your heart, and I could see kombucha in that same category, same ABV. It's, to me, it's a wine killer for sure, and also craft beer as well. Listen to me anecdotally telling stories like I know.
Is a huge selling point for Kyla and hard kombucha. And it is, the number one thing we walk into an on-premise account and ask, do you have a gluten-free option on draft? We launched Lavender Lemonade in kegs in California last year, and it's doing really well. Even at locations like brew pubs. One of my sales managers said, yeah, I'm doing really well with Kyla going after breweries. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I walk in and I ask, is there a gluten-free option? And if there isn't, I share why it will grow their business to have one.
That's a great, even think of that. It's not, have you ever thought about putting the gluten back in to make it taste? Sometimes I want to turn this into Between Two Ferns,
You did. Success.
Right. Yeah. I normally spit it back in the can. So yeah, I mean,
The aspect is a huge selling point. Gluten-free has grown as something that consumers are interested in, and it's certainly something that restaurants understand. So that's exciting. And then, like we talked about, that lower ABV fitting into your lifestyle. I mean, a huge part of hard kombucha consumer is about the lifestyle aspect, having a fit and healthy lifestyle and wanting to embrace beverage brands that fit with that instead of pulling against it, so to speak. And that's what really drew me to Kyla and this role in particular, is just the disruption opportunity in beverage alcohol for better for you.
Yeah.
If you look at the shelf and you look at food, better for you options are now almost 10% of food options on shelf, where in beverage alcohol, it's still only 1%.
Right.
So to me, just being a lifer in this industry, it just makes a ton of sense that consumers would be interested in finding alternatives that fit with a healthy lifestyle.
Morgan, quick follow-up. Are you guys rolling that draft further afield from California? Because I don't see a lot of hard kombucha draft.
We would love to. It certainly takes a commitment from the wholesaler and feet on the street, like we said, because it just to service a draft account is, more labor intensive. We would love to. We've got to be ready in terms of having resources and people to support. And the wholesaler has to be willing to take in the keg inventory and see the turn that they're looking for there. But I think it will grow. I mean, what we're seeing in California has been really exciting in terms of keg sales. And we're on like a 200% growth pace and launching a new flavor this month, actually. So we have the Sunset Trio, which is our second top selling flavor, which is a more Hawaiian Pog inspired flavor that, people are really into. And we're launching it in kegs this month, which will be exciting to see how that does.
When you say, are the kegs take more care than like a craft beer? I mean, obviously it's unpasteurized, but I'm assuming it probably has a shorter shelf life, or
it does. Where our shelf life is around 6.5 months.
Okay, that's still and okay. And so I'm sorry, I edit this because but I'm getting back to the draft. So is that only sold in California now? I'm fascinated by this.
Only sold in California today. It's
Okay.
fairly new, but the more and more I go out in California and, do the menu audit, the more I'm seeing hard kombucha, cider, sort of beyond beer options creeping onto the menu and to draft. And I think hard kombucha has a competitive advantage over seltzer when it comes to kegs and draft, because it's got a beautiful color in the glass and it just really benefits like a beer to that fresh pour because of how it's used.
Yeah. Oh my God. There is nothing more deflating than pouring a hard seltzer in a glass. It just looks like water. It's just like the most unsexy thing in the world.
We're always educating, we're always pouring Kyla into a glass to show. I mean, that purple from the lavender lemonade is so beautiful on draft, and Sunset Trio has a beautiful kind of sunset color as well. So people see it in the glass and they want to try one.
Yeah, because it looks like a nice cocktail. And, I totally agree. I know that they will not be named, but there are some people who add coloring to their draft offerings and seltzer just so it looks cool in a glass. But, to me, kombucha lends itself to draft. If the old draft, like cask ales, the old draft additions lend itself to something that is fermenting. It's a live thing. It's, whether it is or not, but, it's more of a kind of a historical, and I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's
experience and ritual. Yeah. Totally.
Well, pouring a Bud Light in a draft seems to me like ridiculous. If I'm going to drink a light beer, I'm going to get it definitely in a can or a bottle, because there's no value there. But a good craft beer, even wine out of a keg, seems reasonable to me. I think it's
we do a lot of blind tasting, and people just it just tastes really good out of the draft.
Yeah.
And so that's been exciting, and I think a big area, when it comes to market readiness, a big area of opportunity.
Do y'all have a tasting room?
Cocktails. I mean, what's also been fun in selling Kyla in the on-premise is educating people that hard kombucha is a really fun twist on classic cocktails that are very simple. So we do a Kyla 75 that's a twist on the French 75. We do an aviation with the lavender lemonade, and then even our Sunset Trio, we have a lot of fun with turning it into a mimosa for brunch. So there's lots of fun to be had in the cocktail realm as well.
It seems like it would be a good mixer. I know that all these young people going crazy, mixing everything. It just seems, it's just not right.
Well, Morgan, I make my whiskey sours at home with kombucha. So
Oh, for
Love
gosh
that.
sakes.
Nice.
Jen,
Well, it's a
please.
great camping cocktail, which really plays into our audience as well. Very outdoorsy, nature driven. You know, you bring a bottle of tequila and some hard kombucha, and you've got a really simple campfire cocktail.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
What can you tell me a little bit about where you said you're a lifer in this industry? And so you come from wine and spirits. Can you tell us a little bit about your history?
Sure. So it actually starts before I was even born. My father was in the industry in the hospitality and entertainment world. So I grew up around restaurants, hotels, nightclubs, and just was always very drawn to the experience that he was creating for people. And when I went to college, I studied marketing since that seemed to be the part of the business I was most drawn to. But when I moved to New York, I was lucky enough to get a job right out of the gates at Moet Hennessy on the brand marketing side. And so I spent 10 years there in Manhattan and out in Napa Valley on various brand teams across spirits, wine, and champagne. And then
Did you get a discount on handbags as well, employed? Sorry.
everything but Louis Vuitton.
Dang.
They didn't discount.
yeah, Sylvia.
But yes, there was a very nice corporate card.
Well, he is the richest guy in France. And his
Bernard.
daughter's taking over as CEO. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, phenomenal company and such a great place to learn about sales and marketing. So that was a blast. But what I was really drawn to at the end of my career, which led me to my next move, was what was going on in craft spirits and this whole idea of consumers wanting to discover brands rather than buying the big mainstream brand that their parents bought. And so as a marketer, I was really drawn to that idea around discovery and the passion of a consumer finding something they love and wanting to share it with their friends and family. And so I discovered what was then Anchor Distilling Company based in San Francisco and their incredible portfolio of spirits that were imported from around the world and produced in San Francisco, and joined there as a VP of marketing on the distilling side and got to be a part of the very exciting spinoff to the independent company now, Hotline & Co. So I was chief marketing officer there when I got tapped for the Kyla job. And, again, I've always been drawn to new challenges and new spaces. And I really am passionate about what's going on in Better For You. And for myself personally, always aspired to have a more sort of general management experience. And so this role has really allowed me to go beyond marketing and grow my perspective and my skills and sales and operations, and have a lot of respect for it now.
Fritz Maytag was a pioneer in craft beer. He doesn't get enough attention or recognition for what he did for craft spirits, because he was one of the first. He was way back there. I remember calling him. This is before I started Beer Business Daily, so it was over 25 years ago, and I was interested in craft distilling at the time, and it was just kind of kicking around, and I called him and asked him if I could come visit and look at his distilling operation. He said, no, it's too proprietary. Because nobody was doing it back then.
About it at first. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought
this time in terms of looking at craft gin instead of vodka and whiskey.
Right. Anybody can make vodka. I accidentally make it in my bathtub sometimes,
Yeah, it could have been Schuhmacher instead of Tito's vodka.
And that's what really got me into the emerging space and, the rewards of building brands from scratch and building categories that are really on the up and up.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I agree. Fritz was very ahead of his time.
Yes. Very cool cap. good. We had anything else, Jen?
I don't think so. I was just gonna say I was a fan of that hopped gin because I'm a fan of
Oh,
gin, fan of
cool.
craft beer. So they still make that? I'm
I
assuming
don't
they do.
know. I
Okay.
don't know. It was, was still around when I was there, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's still there. But yeah, very cool idea.
If
Yeah.
it's not, they should bring it back because hop water and everything hops is so in right now. And I'm, I think hop water, I think non-alc hop water I think it's going to be a big player this year. I mean, it already is, but I think, non-alc beer is going to have a big competition there with hop water. Am I right there? Or am I just talking like I'm an idiot?
I think you're right.
Yeah,
Thank
think-
you, Jordan.
I think hop water might be a little more refreshing for people.
Yeah.
I think it might have a little more velocity behind it.
Yeah.
Than
It's just
non-alc
hard to
beer.
get around the price point. For $15.
Yeah.
Where are you on I'm assuming you're a super premium price.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's a craft brew product at a premium. So our singles sell at $4.99 at retail, and our six packs at $15.99. So it is a premium offering in the space. But once you learn more about what goes into the production, and it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's not
Premium
unreasonable.
Yeah, the quality of ingredients is a huge part of what sets our kombucha apart.
Yeah. And shipping and and everything. I mean, it's it's not an easy product to ship across the country. Making it shelf stable, I'm sure was a feat in itself.
Very brilliant
Yeah.
move.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. You know what? This is
a
the
lot
pod.
of fun. And
Yeah.
we've got to get everybody some Kyla so you can know what I'm talking about when I talk about how delicious it is, and keep your eye out. We've got a lot of fun things planned this year, so please stay tuned. I mentioned the Women's History Month initiative in March, which is going to be awesome. We're donating a portion of our proceeds to two really kick-ass nonprofit partners that are empowering women. One is called Step Up, which is an incredible mentorship program for women leaders, and the other is called Girls on the Run, which builds confidence in women through running and fitness. So that's going to be a lot of fun in March. Whole Foods has joined as our national partner for that. So keep your eye out there. And then we have a really fun summer program called the Adult Lemonade Stand that's coming out because, as I mentioned, Lavender Lemonade has done so well for us, but we actually launched a second lemonade last year called Lychee Lemonade that's doing really well. So we're going to put them both together this summer for a fun sampling concept.
Cool.
Awesome.
Very good. All right. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Morgan, for
Morgan.
being
Thank
on.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it was
Morgan.
a blast, and have a great weekend.
All
You
right.
too.
You too.